We made every single mistake that you could possibly make in starting a company. I think that there is so much fear around AI in media that is unnecessary. I am a true believer in the fact that AI is going to empower good journalists. And I do think that people are more excited about faces rather than logos. And what I mean by that is...
Welcome to Rules Don't Apply, where we're speaking with pioneers, provocateurs and purveyors of non-conventional wisdom. Recorded alongside a live audience at South by Southwest Sydney, this series seeks to redefine the art of the possible. Because for those looking to navigate what's next, the rules of today may just no longer apply. Let's kick off day 4, South by Southwest Sydney. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. If you are roaming the gallery or the Platinum Lounge, come on over. We have a fabulous chat with the always delightful Poppy Reid. We are filming live another episode of The Growth Distillery where rules don't apply. And for those playing at home, Poppy is the co-founder of Brag Media. She was formerly the editor-in-chief of the Brag Media, which includes the Rolling Stone, Australia and New Zealand, Variety Australia, Tone Deaf, The Industry Observer, The Brag and The Music Network across its portfolio. She is a multi-award-winning journalist and commentator, having won the Music Journalist of the Year Award in 2022 at the Australian Women in Music Awards. She has received the publishing accolade at last year's Media Week Next of the Best. More recently, you were crowned Champion of Change at the B&T Women in Media Awards. Thank you so much for joining us. We're delighted to have you. Round of applause for Poppy.
Aw, thank you for having me.
You are
what
most
a lovely
welcome.
intro. Thank you.
So, I would like to start at the very beginning with you because what I find fascinating, Poppy, is that you have done something that is, I think, remarkably difficult. You built a publishing business during a COVID pandemic, but not just any business, one that really tapped into Australia's younger audiences that are notoriously difficult to engage. Where do we start with this? Take us on the journey.
Okay, I think it might be apposite to start right when I had a phone conversation with Luke Gergis, who was my co-founder at the Brag Media. So I was working at the Music Network. I'd worked my way up from intern to editor across a few years, and I'd been there at that point around 7 years all up. And Luke calls me and he's like, I'd love to meet with you. Didn't really give me any context. He was in the industry a little bit as an artist manager and stuff, so I just thought perhaps he was wanting to pitch me a story for the Music Network. I meet with him. I'm late to the meeting because it's not super important to me. He literally skateboards in and I'm like, who is this young guy? And he tells me he wants to build a media company and he's, just meeting with a bunch of people. And then I think, okay, this isn't the meeting that I thought it was. It's Luke wanting advice. I told him he was absolutely nuts, that building a music media company and putting those two industries together where it's very difficult to make money is, you've got to be a little bit insane. But I gave him some advice. I was like, if I was going to do it, I would probably focus on this and I'd probably do this. Do with that what you will. See ya. And then 2 weeks later, he called me and said, I want to do it. I'm going to start this media company and I want to do it with you. I want you to come and co-found it with me. Yeah, and he also said, we could go belly up in 6 months. Like, it could literally be nothing in 6 months and you won't have a job. I cannot guarantee you employment because it is music and media combined.
It's a roll of the dice.
Exactly. And I knew that I would learn more in that 6 months, even if I did lose my job, than I would in the next 6 months at the Music Network, where I really felt like I was able to do it quite well, and I had a very small team as well, so I wasn't really challenged as much as I would have liked to have been. So I took that jump with Luke, and we made every single mistake that you could possibly make in starting a company.
What are the 3 on the podium? Biggest mistakes
The
you
3
made?
biggest mistakes. One, we naturally had hardly any budget, so we hired a lot of very entry-level young people. Yep. We hired kids, and so they weren't super experienced. They wanted to be led by us. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing. We were still learning how to be managers, how to be leaders. We were terrible. We were terrible managers. So hired young people, did not have experience as leaders, terrible managers. And then the third mistake that we probably made, we did that idea of like, oh, let's just stick things at the wall, like throw things at the wall and see if it sticks. We were trying to be data-led, but we weren't as data-led as we possibly could be. We just went, let's just have a crack, and probably weren't as strategic as we should have been. And then we launched a magazine in COVID.
Talk us through that. How did that play out? Because I can imagine that that's not the easiest of jobs, particularly where people aren't going into footfall traffic stores.
Yeah, so we got the rights to bring Rolling Stone back to Australia, and I was saying to Luke, as soon as we started the Bragg Media, I was like, we should get Rolling Stone on board. You know, we're acquiring companies, we're really focused on growth, let's get the best music brand on board. And he was like, I don't really know about it. And I was like, well, let's meet with them. So he started the conversations. Also, I said to him, like, it would make 12-year-old Poppy extremely happy. Like, could you just fulfill the stream for me and let me be editor-in-chief of Rolling Stone, please? And then the conversations progressed to a really great place. We went over to the US after we'd signed the licensing deal, and the plan was just to learn across a week how their business worked and how we could monetize the business in Australia. So we had a very privileged week. We met with the socials team, we met with the events team, we met with the partnerships team, we met with the editorial teams for the magazine, for online, everything. We realised, gosh, we don't have that kind of team. We're going to try and have to do it back home. But we also learnt that a large player in their revenue was the print magazine, which we didn't plan to do. It was like, we're not doing a print magazine. This is crazy. So we came back, and on the plane we decided we're going to do a print mag. And that was at the end of 2019. And we launched our first magazine in May 2020. So when March hit, you know, the horrible March, the global pandemic March, I said to Luke, well, obviously we're not going to do a print mag. All the news agents are closed. We don't have a subscription base. What the frick are we going to do? And he's like, no, we said we're going to do it, so we're going to do it. Everyone's going to lay down. We're going to stand up. We're going to invest more. And it worked. Like, while Bauer shut down a whole bunch of media companies, we were able, very luckily, to have further investment from our investor, Sam Benjamin, amazing music fan and true believer and champion of us, to invest further in digital marketing and grow that business. And we also wanted to be a bit counterculture too. You know, Rolling Stone magazine is thought of as, the print magazine at least, the audience is largely male and they love rock music. The first magazine, I put Tones and I on the cover. The second magazine, I put Sia on the cover. A couple months later, I put gender non-binary artist Tash Sultana on the cover. It was partly because we really wanted to tap into our core audience, which was youth.
And what was your strategy for really tapping into the cultural zeitgeist of Australia's youth?
Well, I think it really was listening to the audience and listening to a lot of the kids that we had hired as well. And I think we also just thought, what is everyone else doing what is everyone else not doing that we could be doing? And I also, honestly, I'm just such a big fan of pop music. And I'm such a big fan of elevating women. So there was a lot of selfish choices in there, you know, to put Tones and I on the cover. And then it paid off. Like, now she's literally the most streamed song by a female in the world.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And so you stand up this magazine. Were there growing pains in then scaling that to be the juggernaut that it now is?
Definitely. I remember launching that we were getting ready to launch the magazine. And I'd done a print magazine before with the Music Network, but we'd closed it by the time I'd became editor. So I wasn't really that clued into what happens with a magazine. And I called my sister, Katie Taylor, who had worked in magazines previously. She was on maternity leave and she was about to have her third baby. And I said, I need help with this magazine. I don't know what I'm doing. And she was like, Poppy, you are extremely capable, but I am extremely worried. And I said, she lives on the Gold Coast. I said, will you fly to Sydney and will you help launch this magazine with me? And will you just at least meet with the printer and ask all the hard questions and put together a schedule? And she did that, and the whole team just kind of fell in love with her. And I said to her, hey, you know how you've got this council job and it's really cushy and it pays well and you've got all this maternity leave? Will you leave that and come and
join
work
the circus.
Work with us? And she's like, stuff it. I'll do it. And now she is the creative director of the magazine at Rolling Stone. She's also head of studio across all of the Bragg Media. But she just won the company 2 awards at the Mumbrella Publish Awards. They won Cover of the Year for our cover with Crowded House, and they won Branded Studio of the Year. She's head of studio.
Yeah, well done. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Talk to me. I know you want to talk about failure and getting it wrong. When did you get it wrong and how did you bounce back? What's been the mantra of the team over at the Bragg?
I think I really got it wrong in the early days of management, as I mentioned before, and managing young people. And how I bounced back was I got an executive coach.
Okay.
And I invested time and money into help. And I learnt through that, which it seems so obvious now, but I think that because I was so busy and trying to be everything all at once, I didn't take time to actually work on myself as a leader and a manager. And I'm still working on it, by the way. This is like, a life's...
The constant work on.
Exactly. But it helped me realise that young people or anyone who you're managing, they don't want to be your friend. They don't want you to be there for them when times are super tough in the way of like sitting there and being the shoulder to cry on. They want you to do it through actions. They want you to give them flexibility. They largely want transparency and they want to understand their impact within the business. So me saying to this young girl who's crying in the toilets, let's go for a walk and I'll buy you lunch and we can talk about it, that's actually not helpful. But me sitting with her and saying, here's your impact on the business, here's where the business is going, here's how you're going to play a huge part in that, is way more helpful. Like, the young people do not want a friend, they want a leader, and a leader who supports from the bottom.
Are there any other myths or truisms that, we think young people are like that are just categorically false?
Well, I'm a millennial, so I don't really want to speak for them. But I do feel, in my experience, that they're more motivated by impact and flexibility than salary. So I don't know if you can get a high achiever, high impact power player by offering them a huge salary. But I think you can get them by saying, this will be your impact, this will lead to your legacy, this is what you will have ownership on, this is what you will have autonomy on, and you can do it in any way that you want.
If you were to look back at when you started this journey and the type of leader that you were then versus what you are now, what would be the big quantum leaps in your style, if I were to ask your team?
I think just knowing who I am.
What do you mean by that?
I think I'm defined by my values. I have 3 big values that are my North Star in everything that I do, and they are growth, health and well-being, and joy. And if I'm in a situation where I'm not adhering to any of them, then I'm out. I'm not going to take part in it, I'm not going to do it. But it also means that if I'm in a really tough situation that I don't like and I hate it and I feel like I'm messing everything up and the imposter syndrome's coming in, then I can tap into that growth value and I can say, okay, you wanted to be here, you asked for growth, this is your chance to get that.
Are there any tips or tricks? You talk about centering around values and, values-based practitioning. When you feel as though you're going off-piste, what do you do to bring yourself back?
Well, there's multiple tools.
Okay, talk us through them.
Okay, so it's kind of tapping into this amazing executive coach. If anyone has the ability and the funds to invest in themselves, I would say call up this woman called Susie Jacobs. She has changed my life. And she talks about the power of choice. And I'm not going to try and, teach you her teachings because that is her job. But that power of choice is something that's really stuck with me, that we have a choice in every single moment, and that our entire reality is of our creation. We get to choose. So if I am feeling a bit off-piste and I'm not quite on track of where I want to be, I understand that I have a choice in that moment to get myself back on track. And I've been in meetings where it's been quite horrible and I'm feeling like I just want to run out that door. I don't like it. I'm feeling like I'm cornered, and I've gone, okay, what actually do I have the choice to do here? What is my intention here? And if my intention is to build trust with that person who's feeling like I'm being backed into a corner, if my intention is to connect with that person, then I'm going to come from a place of wanting to connect, and I'm going to come from a place of trying to open that door and build that trust. And I've actually successfully been able to turn a meeting like that around in the moment, which I never thought I was previously able to do, because I have ran out the door crying before. I have been that girl.
Who inspires you? I think that there's probably a lot of people, particularly young media practitioners, looking at you as an inspiration, but where do you draw inspiration from?
It's going to sound like a bit of a broken record, but it was my sister, Katie Taylor. So her being in the business, she inspires me every day. She has 3 children. She is the main breadwinner, with her husband being the main caregiver for her 3 kids. She lives on the Gold Coast. She is so excited and loving of tradition and family. And however, she's extremely creative and extremely driven. She's got this weird, I find her so fascinating. I'm like, how are you, super mum, turning up to every single thing that your kids are doing in a really beautiful, authentic way, and then you're just this boss person? Like, I got to witness her on set in LA at the Troye Sivan cover shoot for Rolling Stone magazine, just not bossing everyone around, but being like, okay, now we're doing this, blah, blah, blah. All right, we need to change outfits, blah, blah, blah. And she's just producing, she's directing, creative directing, of course, working collaboratively with every single person on that shoot. And everyone just loves her. She just creates good vibes.
And why is she the person that it inspires you? What is it about her that you draw inspiration from?
I think because she takes risks. And she's not afraid, and this is kind of perfect for this, she's not afraid to fail. Because she said to me the other day, I don't actually tie any of my worth to work. And she's like, I know how good I am, I know my value, I know my achievements in this world, but I don't actually feel defined by any of them. She's like, there's this saying, I am not what I do. And it's, as a woman who is 37, who does not want children, it's very easy for someone like me to be defined by their work, to really just hone in on career. And so every day I try and say, I am not what I do, I am not what I do. I'm also a sister, I'm also an amazing auntie, and I'm also a lover of boxing at the moment, and all these other fun things, and a good friend. And Katie, it's innately in her. And also I've just seen how she's leveled up the business. She has saved that company thousands and thousands of dollars just by having like really great relationships within the business, with creatives, with collaborators. Everyone in the business wants to work with her as well. And she didn't get there by nepotism. And I can say this because when she was asked to come into the business full time, the person who hired her did not actually know that we're sisters.
Incognito.
So I had her working on the magazine and doing all the stuff, and then the COO said, will you come in and be, head of studio? And then she lives on the Gold Coast, and we got together at our Christmas party at the end of that year, and the COO was like, hold on, you guys look the same. Are you sisters? Like, what? How did you not know this? So she definitely got there all by her own merit.
What excites you about the next 5 years for music media?
Music media or media in general?
Little from column A, little from column B.
I think that there is so much fear around AI in media that is unnecessary. I am a true believer in the fact that AI is going to empower good journalists.
I agree.
If you are a very average, low-level copywriter, I am so worried for you. If you are a creative, curious thinker, then AI is going to be such an amazing tool for you. It is not a replacement for creativity. So that part really excites me. I also think that storytelling in general is going to move away more from the written word in some ways and move more towards video and audio storytelling, which is what I'm very focused on. That's why this is so great. So those two things really, really excite me. And I do think that people are more excited about faces rather than logos. And what I mean by that is I think that fans and consumers have more trust in personalities than they do in institutions and brands and businesses.
We did a whole program of work this year just on that.
Oh, so tell me about that.
I categorically agree.
Yeah.
We've seen a shift in what drives influence.
Yeah.
Last one from me, Poppy. And we'd like to finish on this with all of our guests. If you could go back to yourself as you were embarking on this journey, knowing everything that you know now with all of the success that you have, and give your 20-year-old self some advice, what would you tell Poppy?
To get rid of that imposter syndrome. When I moved from the Gold Coast / Brisbane, I was kind of living between, to Sydney to start an internship with the Music Network, where I worked for free for 6 months and worked my way up to editor. I had no money, no job, no friends, and I really feared people in the industry because I put them on this pedestal. And in some ways that was great because I was just soaking up every interaction with them and learning, and I had this huge desire to prove myself. But then in other ways it really, I did myself a disservice by putting them so high on that pedestal and not understanding my own value and worth. You know, I'm looking for an intern at the moment. I haven't put a job ad out for this new thing that I'm building, which I can't talk about, but anyway, it's going to be fun. And I know that I'm going to learn so much from that paid intern that we bring on. And so I think just getting rid of that, oh, you're a fraud, everyone's going to find out you don't know what you're doing. We all have that. Frickin' Oprah has imposter syndrome. Oprah. Meryl Streep has imposter syndrome. Lady Gaga has imposter syndrome.
You never get rid of it.
Yeah, okay. So I actually think that you can get rid of it.
Okay.
And here's my strategy of how I have tried. It's about understanding my privilege and going, why would I have imposter syndrome? Why would I sit here and think, God, I don't deserve to be here, I'm total fraud, when there are people with way less privilege. If they were in my position, they wouldn't be wasting it by sitting here thinking, I don't deserve to be here. They would be utilising this platform. They would be doing their best work and trying to make a true impact and not wasting their time by getting in their head.
I love that. I mean, we should all be so lucky to have such a centred and clear view of ourselves, Poppy. I think that you have an amazing self-awareness, and I think it's truly inspiring.
Oh,
thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Poppy Reid.
Thank you. Thank you for your lovely questions.
You're very welcome, mate.